Hello there and welcome to Reykjavík Grapevine's Newscast. My name is Valur Grettisson and I'm an editor-in-chief at Reykjavík Grapevine. You can perhaps notice that I do not have Polly with me, but I do have Bjartmar Alexandersson with me.
Yeah, it's the same as a dog, no difference.
This is not the Icelandic Perspective because, as perhaps some of you know, Bjartmar is of course an investigative reporter and he does a lot of investigative journalism about environmental issues. There was quite a big story that broke on Friday, which would be hopefully today, which basically means that Bjartmar went to Sweden and he found more or less all of the plastic that we have exported
to be recycled
in 2016 in a warehouse. And this is quite the unique case, and we even have video footage of this, which Stundin, which is the newspaper, a magazine that he writes for, allowed us to use. So perhaps this is enough. You will understand it as we go. Perhaps just tell us a little bit what this case is about.
So this is a case of fraud. This is it's a criminal case. This is the. But
there is nothing criminal, or, like the police is not involved yet.
No, not yet. We don't know how far it goes, but. You have all this.
It is in Sweden, though.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So we have what we have here is what Interpol call. This is a perfect example on how organized crimes can go into the recycling. Mm-hmm. And what happened here is that over 60%, almost 60% of all plastic that the whole country of Iceland collected and shipped out for export to be recycled. In 2016, actually ended up in a warehouse in southern Sweden. And when you think about these scandals, you always hear about a third world country or some poor nation in Eastern Europe, but you never hear the word, environmental corruption and Sweden.
Yeah, this is one of the richest part of the world, if not the richest part.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's no secret that the Western countries export their plastic and plastic use to the third world countries.
Yes.
One of them being China for the longest time.
Yes.
But today, Malaysia is taking this part that China used to have after they stopped this.
Yes. The Chinese actually stopped all imports in the beginning of 2018. Mm-hmm. And when China stops something, there's a problem. And there's a huge problem because even the Communist Party of China, they said we're not going to allow this to go forward. Right. Even if there were companies making billions in China out of this dirty business, they said we're going to stop because we think this will pollute our country beyond repair if we continue this. So everything flowed to the Southeast Asian countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and these factories who are, recycling plastic popped up everywhere in these countries to take over the Chinese market that closed.
Now, you have been writing about environmental issues for quite the time, since you started as a journalist a few years ago. One of these things that you have been focusing on is this recycling fund of the government, or úrvinnslusjóður in Icelandic.
It's a horrible word.
Horrible word in Icelandic, but it definitely makes sense in English.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, this is a fund that companies pays this fund to pay companies to recycle plastic and other material, paper and so
tires on. And many categories they have, batteries, electronics and so on.
But this also connects with consumers because this goes into the price of the things that they're selling. Exactly. Therefore,
eventually we pay it.
Yeah,
the company pays it just by directing when they import the product or produce the product, the packaging actually around the product. And we then initially, in the end, we pay the price for it to be recycled.
Exactly.
And the system is set up that way that that the money that I and you, we pay, is supposed to pay for the recycling of the material in the best environmental manner. Mm-hmm. Well, in this case, it did not happen. And there are a few more examples which we won't go over because we were talking about this big story. But I've been writing about this for now over 18 months. This is the Icelandic Recycling Fund.
And the thing is that we are not really sure how much of this plastic, for example, is recycled, because we have to trust that the companies are actually recycling it.
Yeah.
And it seems that we have a company that Icelanders sent to like exported the plastic to the Swedish company called Sverek.
Yeah.
And they have been sending very misleading information back, which they get paid for.
Yeah.
They get paid for what they recycle, right?
Exactly.
As well as the companies that send the plastic.
Yeah. So everybody is benefiting from this tax that you pay when you buy the product, and then you pay for the fee for the packaging around it. So the Sverek is a really, really interesting company. And the story behind it is amazing. How much basically corruption they are connected to. They have been investigated in 3 countries by the police.
Okay.
They were actually sued by the Norwegian Recycling Fund, the Swedish Recycling Fund, and also they were a part of the biggest environmental accident in Latvia, when over 23,000 tons of plastic were burned in an open field. And according to the police in there and the prosecutor, when they were dealing with the case, 11,000 of these 23,000 tons of plastic that got burned came from Sverek. And they were falsifying paperwork, you know, dummy corporations moving this and so on. So, and also what they did is that they inflated the number what they actually were recycling. So what you have here is a case where they said to the customer, for example, the Icelandic companies, and actually they did it for a few years more, we're going to go in later, but they said we are recycling up to 85% of your plastic. Yeah. And these numbers are just phenomenal. You cannot see these numbers anywhere in this business. Yeah. So they sold that they had this perfect technology and everything.
So they were either the absolute best in the world, or they were lying.
Well, yeah. Well, they were actually lying. So it's really quite simple answer there. They were lying, you know, lie your pants on fire lying. Yeah. And
they were caught doing this in 2015.
Yeah, 15 were caught, and the investigation started into the 2016. And what happened was that the Norwegian Recycling Fund actually, or the Grundpunkt, as it's called in Norway, it's a recycling scheme similar to the Icelandic Recycling Fund. They did an investigation, and they were told that they were recycling these ridiculous high numbers. Well, they got a special investigator to do an investigation, and instead of this 80% that they promised, the real number was actually 19%. 19. Yeah. So you can see it's a little bit different between those two numbers. Yes. If you in any manner, we can go into any jokes we want.
I'm bad in math, but I get that.
Yeah, exactly. You're horrible in math, but you know now well, it's 1980. Yeah, yes. It's different there.
It's different.
And they did this, and the CEO, the former CEO of Sverek, was just falsifying paperwork. And I spoke to the new CEO that told me that the owners did not know nothing about this. That he did all this cheating, as the Swedish always say. He did it all on his own. He was a rogue CEO. Just, nobody knew what he was doing.
He took a fall. He was a fall guy.
And exactly. So I asked the CEO of the company right now, it's like, so you charged him to the police, right, for all this fraud and everything?
Going rogue.
Yeah. No.
They did not.
They did not.
Now, here's another interesting question. All companies that was like not non-Icelanders actually stopped doing business with Sverek after this, right?
Well, yeah, the Norwegians did, the Swedish did. There were some other companies who were still doing it because they were the cheapest. Okay. That's why everybody loved them. It was the cheapest way to get rid of your plastics was to ship it to Sverek.
So the biggest ones, they were out.
Yeah.
Then Icelanders, none of them stopped doing business with this company after this?
No. Even though the Swedish Recycling Fund and the Norwegian started this investigation, they started a police investigation, and they got actually benefits from them or money back for this lie, basically.
I mean, they were already paid for by the companies and consumers.
Exactly.
And they got that paid back. I mean, because these were falsified numbers.
Exactly, because they were actually just, instead of recycling it, the 84% number, they were just putting it in the cement factory and burn it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Straight away. You know, there was no recycling in many shipments, and they didn't even try to do it. Didn't run it through the machine or anything.
So the thing is that Icelanders are still doing this, and you knew this. You asked them about this last year, and you also unveiled this odd warehouse in this small town in south of Sweden called
Porut. Við erum stöddina fyrir utan vöruhús í bænum Porut fyrir utan Kalmar í suður Svíþjóð. Þetta vöruhús ekkert sérstaklega heldur en eitthvað annað vöruhús hér á svæðinu, en það sem gera það hins vegar mjög sérstakt í þessu tilfelli að það allt tróðfullt af íslensku plasti.
You decided to visit this warehouse. What made you go there?
So initially I wrote a story back in October 2020 called The Plastic Secret of Iceland. Okay. And it was a huge story about, all the corruption in this industry, what was happening, and I revealed about this warehouse in Porut, and which is actually near Kalmar in South Sweden, sorry. And I told, everybody knew this in the Icelandic Recycling Fund, but still they never acted. I waited and waited, are you going to check this out? Are you going to investigate this? Are we going to, do something about all this Icelandic plastic that's been paid for? Don't you want your money back?
For example.
Refund, for example, I get a refund if somebody, makes a mistake at a restaurant, you know what I mean? So we're talking about tens of millions of Icelandic kronas here. Yeah. But no, they didn't. What they did, they made a phone call to the CEO of Sverek, had a conversation, and said, well, this is the past, and we're going to move on.
Who had that phone call with Sverek?
The CEO of the Icelandic Recycling Fund.
Yeah, which we call Úrvinnslusjóður in Icelandic.
Exactly, that bad word. Sounds like you're going to the toilet and doing something. But Úrvinnslusjóður, it sounds horrible. So, so he knew, the board knew about it through the CEO, and we are now in a situation where I had to go. I had to go into this 15,000 square meter warehouse where we had, it was 8 meter high up to, was the highest point of the warehouse. It was not only filled with plastic inside, it was also plastic outside. And I had to crawl through the shit.
The warehouse is completely full, 6 meters up of this?
Yeah, of this. It's a little bit hard to get in, but...
Hérna, tandur. Þetta íslenskt hér. Á svona krónupókum, bónuspókum. Þetta allt íslenskt plast hér, þessi kassi hér. Hérna LGG frá mjólkursamsölunni. IKEA-mottur, eitthvað utan af. Íslensk skyr hérna. Íslenska pakningar, næringargildi.
Bónar.
Ostakaka með súkkulaði. Þristur frá Kólus. Þetta bara endalaust. Mjólkursamsöluna hér mikið með plasti.
Bruno.
Yeah, this bonus. You're getting used to this brand now.
I want you to describe a little bit for me when you found this house and when you went through this black hole of plastic.
Yeah, I mean, we call it the temple of plastics. The plastic goes there to die, slow death. And it's been there for 5 years, I have to remember. So what
all of it is from 2016, by
everything.
The way.
Yeah, according to all the numbers on the plastic itself, because I dig through this shit. So I was sticking my fingers into 5-year-old ski. You know what I mean? It was just filthy disgusting. And fighting cobweb. I felt like basically Indiana Jones in the Temple of Plastics. That's what I say. I needed a machete to go through there. But everything went on my clothes and I lived through it. But when I got there, I saw the pile outside and I was like, well, this is not that much. So this is, it's going to be a story, fine. But not a big one. So, but I had the story. And then the owner came, this nice Palestinian guy who runs actually a car part services now in this warehouse, just small part of it because all the rest is filled. And he took us down. There's no electricity there, so there's no lights. So he opened up this door, and you could just, as soon as he opened it up, you could feel the smell. And you have to remember, it's -8 degrees Celsius.
Right.
And you could still smell it in some odd manner. And there was a complete darkness. The only thing you saw were a tight black tunnel, and all the side walls were plastic. I think this story is a tragedy because everybody believed that they were doing the right thing. The consumers believed they were doing the right thing. The companies believed they were doing the right thing. And everybody in the chain said, yeah, we are doing the right thing. This went to the statistics. We clapped ourselves on the back, and we just said, we're doing a good job of recycling and everything. And then just figure out it was all a lie. And this is the problem in this industry, is that this is happening too often. And there's no accountability because the law regarding this are so weak.
Now you went through this house. You found all of this plastic. You even took plastic with you back.
Yes, actually.
We should actually show people this.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
Yeah. So I filled this. I put this in my bag. Not a great idea. I had to clean all my all my clothes again, which were in the bag. But I actually I got this fine plastic bag from it. I didn't have to buy a bag. So
Okay.
it was good.
Recycled, I guess.
Yeah. So when I came through the airport, I was stopped randomly in customs. And they just asked, "What the hell do you have here? And why do you have it?" And then they just didn't want to ask more questions. If it was like a plastic fetish, I don't know. But they had a
well,
weird...
they did ask, like, what do you do? And
exactly.
You said,
I said, I'm a journalist at Stundin.
Like,
and they were
okay,
like,
just get out of here.
Yeah, we're backing off. So, but what we have here are the classics. See, this is from a local bread factory here in Iceland.
Very famous.
Very famous one.
Most sold bread probably in Iceland.
As you can see, the plastic itself, it's starting degrading. So what's happening is that this plastic is turning into microplastics. And it's when that does, you will never be able to get this back. This will never be recycled, for example. This is too bad quality. Coffee was really much of this. This is a local coffee in Iceland. I don't see the blend here, but it seems to be, some good stuff, I guess. I mean, but and here's the odd part. When I spoke to the CEO of the sweater company, he said, "No, this is just waste plastic. We recycled all this." So I said, well, funny thing is, I was in this industry for 10 years. So you don't have to, try to explain me like a child. I know what is recyclable and not. What is a good material and a bad material. So, I mean, here is a thing which is actually really good material for recycling. And even machines that were built in the 1990s can pick this up if you put the plastic into it. So, I mean, this is just, of course this is a lie. Because there were plenty of this and other good material that could be recycled. And here, even more, these bins are really good for recycling. It can be actually used up to nine times if you recycle properly, but of course they're not. What we actually could then, we could actually trace the product. And here you can see an example that we know what date the customer received this product. It was samkaup strax in Seyðisfirði, and this is from a local, the local Pepsi distributor. See, some words are difficult, and all this information is there. So the evidence is there, and you can always see also best before markings on this, and it all points to the year 2016. So I went through the records, and there I could trace it. And where it came from, which companies, and how much was paid for it.
Now, you went through this, let's say, hell of plastic hell, temple of that plastic.
Temple of plastics.
I love that. And the reason we're here actually is because this Recycle Fund is having its annual meeting right now in this hotel.
Yes, a really fancy hotel.
Fancy hotel.
And they have good coffee and cake inside.
And brilliant conference rooms. But the thing is that they are meeting here, and you are here also, because they have not been very responsive about interviews with you.
Yeah, very responsive is an understatement. They actually just, in a really curious manner, just told me they didn't want to speak to me. Making up excuses they couldn't, they didn't have the time. But they had time to speak to other media outlets last week and about this case, which they thought that my reporting was actually just attacking the Icelandic Recycling Fund, and they were actually doing a great job and so forth. But they actually, when I entered it, I got a little bit late.
You
here.
took this, actually, you went
Yeah,
in.
I came in there, I was late, and actually the Minister of Environment was speaking when I came in. And I had this bag, and the problem is that I was trying to get a seat, so I was always bumping this into everything. So this sound was, yeah, so this sound was over, everybody just, I saw the Minister looked up and everything, and I was just, sorry. And just like I could feel, when I entered and I sat, everybody looked at me.
Yeah.
And I saw that I made them feel really uncomfortable being there. And I made them so uncomfortable, actually, a few members of the board actually left a few minutes later. Because,
But how have they, I mean, you found this warehouse of almost like, of 60% of all plastic of the small nation consumed in 1 year.
Well, which we actually exported
and
for
exported,
recycling.
yeah, and exported.
We consumed a lot more.
But this, I mean, it's like what, 3,000 tons or something that we consumed, like when it comes to...
2,729 tons.
Yeah,
I told you, I'm good with numbers.
Yeah, that's the total, like...
amount of all the plastic we exported for recycling.
But we think that there are 1,500 tons within this house.
Yes, we estimate that
at least,
according to the tracking fields and the container numbers, which I tracked back and everything, that 1,500 tons were sent to Sverek, and we believe that every single ton went into this warehouse.
Yeah. How have they been responding to this? I mean, that this house is there, that this plastic of a small nation is now in the hands of just a small family.
Well, that's also the sad story about the Palestinian, refugee family, which has actually now had to take care of this, and they actually have paid all this money, 800,000 Swedish, already to burn 800 tons of plastic.
And this is like 11.5 million Icelandic krona, by the way. But see, I'm pretty good in math also.
No, you remember this number. I know.
Okay,
yeah, you're not good at math. Sorry.
But here's the thing. We didn't go well into it before, but this Palestinian family, they bought this house because they were actually going to have a car part sale in this warehouse.
Yes.
But the plastic was in there, and they were given a promise that they would be moved away by the former owners.
Yes.
And they betrayed that.
Yes.
And this Palestinian family, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, they actually came to Sweden. The father came with his family from actually Lebanon. They fled Palestine to Lebanon, and then they had to flee Lebanon in the 1990 to Sweden. He actually started then a small supermarket, and he ended up in 2005. He had 3 supermarkets, small ones, and he sold them in 2005. They were in several businesses after that. And in 2015, they went into this car part business. They love old cars and restoring them. So this is kind of his old dream to go into this. So they saw this warehouse for sale. It was cheap. They got this promise. So they said, well, we're going to refurbish this and make this look good, and we're going to do our business here. But unfortunately, they were tricked. And they now sit with this plastic, which 1,500 tons out of these 4,000 tons, which are still there, estimated.
Right. This is also Swedish plastic.
There's also Swedish. Most of this is Swedish plastic. So about roughly 2,500 of these 4,000 tons is Swedish, but 1,500 is Icelandic. So, but still, Iceland is a lot smaller than Sweden. So disproportionately, we have a lot more there. If you take per capita, which we love. But it's.
But what did this family say, for example? What do they want, and how have they been dealing with this?
So they actually been paying for this to get rid of this, because the City Council of Kalmar actually told them that if they wouldn't get rid of this, they would get a fine. So it's cheaper for them to pay to be burnt.
So they are in trouble because of
this? Yes, they are now in trouble because of the plastic that we Icelandic consumers, and of course Swedish, paid a tax when we bought the product to be recycled, and they're just sitting there in a warehouse, and nobody gives a shit. Nobody gives a shit. This is like a case where this is the dirty secrets of so many individuals, companies. Bad decisions were made in this, and everybody wants to forget it. And even the CEO of Sverek now told me, don't you have anything new to write about? And I mean,
what does that mean?
Exactly, this is the attitude you have here in this.
You have a warehouse with a plastic consumer of a small nation within, and that's new.
And now in my communications, I just sat down with the chairman of the board of the Icelandic Recycling Fund. And for note, everybody pointed to him
Yeah.
to talk to him. But you have to note, he just started 3 weeks ago to work for the fund because the former chairman actually resigned.
Yeah. For unclear reasons.
For unclear reasons.
But you have definitely been writing about, a lot
Yes.
about this fund.
Yeah.
And some have said that part of the reason is that heat. That this.
That's what we hear according to our sources. We cannot confirm that,
No.
but we actually know that because the problem here is that she was actually given the position by the minister for 4 years.
Yeah, right.
And this is the first time in the history of the Iceland Recycling Fund that a chairman actually resigns.
Yeah.
So the timing is really odd, and the first time also, and so. But the thing now they're going to put in, I'm going to do an interview with the chairman of the board, and everybody's pointing at him. Even the CEO of the Icelandic Recycling Fund, who has been working there for over 10 years with all this experience, was working when this scandal happened, and so on. He points me to talk to him, an individual who's worked for the fund for 3 weeks.
Tell me, what is your hope, like when it comes to this case? This is brand new. This is hitting the medias now, and it's not. I mean, like, what do you want to see happen from here on? Like, from a perhaps journalistic point of view.
Well, of course, what we always ask is that when we do a story about something happening, we ask for accountability. Somebody to step up and give us answers, because the public wants answers, and we are the tool that the politicians and the government employees can use to get those answers to the public. What I hope is that they will actually tell the public this was a mistake. They will try to fix this, because if they don't and they go on the defense, you will see a dramatic decrease in recycling.
Yeah.
Because recycling is based on
that's
trust.
The threat here.
That's the threat here.
That
We're talking
they will
about
lose the confidence of the consumers.
And if you lose it once, it takes so short time, just one article, and you will lose the confidence. It takes years to build it up. So the damage can be huge if the government, the Icelandic Recycling Fund, and the public employees do not answer for this. And somebody tells us, why did I have to crawl through this shit?
One more thing, just in the end. You went through this. I mean, I watched this footage, and I have to say, I was absolutely shocked. I have never seen anything
and scared.
like this.
You actually ran away when you saw the spider web. So just
I did actually.
You stood up and you ran away.
I mean, spider webs is my kryptonite. But the thing is, like, when you were going through all of this, like, how did you just feel? What was the worst thing about this?
Well, I've done my duty of dumpster diving in the industry, seeing, what kind of trash is, how people are not recycling and so on. So for me, this is not a difficult thing, but I can imagine for a normal person to go through it, and that's my cameraman, which I actually drew through the 7 fires of hell.
Thankfully, that was not Arpi.
No, it was not Arpi, it was David, and I love you, David, and so sorry for putting you through this. But yeah, I drew him, and he forgot his gloves. It was just, I remember there was this beautiful shot when I said, hey, David, you need to come here, No, I'm good here.
Please leave me alone.
And I'm just like, no, we need a close-up. No, I can zoom in. No, David, come on. And I didn't figure it out at the time, but after we watched the video, I heard his voice that he did not want to continue this ride with me, or this journey or adventure journey.
So, thank you for this, Bjartmar. Just in the end, you can of course visit stundin.is. You'll find a link down there. You can find the whole video there. Although it's in Icelandic, all of this still.
We will translate it in English.
Right.
So hopefully, English version will come shortly.
Yeah, and we'll tell about that, of course, when it comes to it, and we will definitely tell you more about when it comes to any answers when it comes to this from the government or this mysterious recycle fund or
Úrvinnslusjóður.
So, thanks. See you next time, and thanks for telling us that.
Yeah, and please, if you're going to recycle, talk to your recycling company and ask them, where does my plastic end? But still do the best thing and still recycle. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you. No?
Bara hasar? Var þetta ekki gott?
Mjög gott. Þetta flæddi alveg lígilega vel.
Já, ég veit það.